The desert was quiet, deceptively so. Sand swirled around the wreckage of the mission, each grain catching the harsh sunlight like tiny sparks. Amidst the smoke and the distant echoes of gunfire, one sound pierced everything else, the labored, uneven breathing of their fallen captain. He was pinned beneath debris, his uniform torn, blood darkening the sand around him. The SEALs froze, shock rippling through their ranks. The mission had gone sideways in a heartbeat, and now their leader, the one who had led them through countless operations, was on the brink of death. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're re-watching from. I love knowing who is listening. Among the chaos, she moved like a shadow made of steel. The female marksman, known only in whispers for her uncanny precision, had always been quiet, almost invisible in the squad. But today, invisibility was no longer an option. Her eyes locked on the captain, and something in her expression made the other SEALs stop doubting, stop hesitating. She assessed the weight, the angle, the impossibility of the extraction. And yet there was no fear in Lee's determination, a cold, focused fire that radiated through her every movement. The wind whipped around them, tugging at her uniform, stinging her eyes with grit and grit-filled tears. She could feel the heat radiating from the sand, the acrid scent of spent gunpowder, the metallic temps of blood in the air. Her hands trembled ever so slightly, not from fear, but from the anticipation of what was to come. Every second counted. Every breath could be the difference between life and death. Her teammates hesitated, glancing at one another. The captain had always been a pillar of strength, a symbol of guidance, and now he was incapacitated, vulnerable. In moments like these, hesitation could be fatal. One wrong move, 1 second too slow, and the mission would be lost not just for them, but for the lives depending on their success. She crouched beside him, her fingers brushing the sweat-soaked fabric of his uniform. His eyes fluttered open briefly, confusion clouding his sharp gaze. You're, he began, but the pain etched across his face stopped him. She shook her head gently, a half-smile breaking through the grime. Don't worry, Captain. Got you. It wasn't just reassurance. It was a promise forged in countless battles, in the trust of silent glances and shared danger. And then, with a movement that seemed almost impossible, she lifted him, not hoisted, not drag-lifted, with the grace of someone who had done it 1,000 times in imagination, if not reality. The sand gave way beneath them, but she didn't falter. The team around her felt it, the impossible becoming real. Every SEAL watching felt a knot in their stomach. The weight of their captain was immense, his body heavy from exhaustion and injury. Yet she carried him as though he were no heavier than a rifle, back arched, muscles taut, sweat streaking across her face. She moved backward, careful, precise. Every step a calculation, every inch gained a victory. The enemy's presence was still out there, somewhere beyond the smoke and dunes, waiting. Her heart pounded, not just with the effort of the carry, but with the moral weight of the moment. One wrong decision, one misstep, and the captain could be lost entirely. Her mind raced with possibilities, contingencies, escape routes, and yet there was a strange calm that settled over her. This was what she had trained for. This was what she was born to do. Behind her, the SEALs formed a protective perimeter, covering every angle. They moved like a tide, disciplined and unflinching, yet their eyes kept flicking back to her. She felt the weight of their reliance on her, the unspoken trust that the legendary marksman could do what no one else could, and she didn't let them down. Every step across the shifting desert was a battle in itself. Sand poured into her boots, clinging to sweat-slicked skin. The sun burned overhead, relentless and indifferent. The captain groaned, a sound that tore through her resolve for just a moment, reminding her of his vulnerability. But she held him closer, adjusting her grip, moving with a rhythm that was both brutal and beautiful. A dance of survival played against the backdrop of chaos. For a fleeting second, doubt crept in. Could she make it? Was the terrain too rough? Was she asking too much of herself? A doubt is a luxury soldiers rarely afford themselves. She pushed it aside, focusing on the mission, on the life in her arms, on the promise she had made without words. The enemy fired sporadically, forcing them to duck and pivot, but she never faltered. The SEALs responded instinctively, shielding her path, providing cover that allowed her to navigate the dunes. There was an almost poetic symmetry to it, the unity of the team. The single-minded focus of the marksman, the fragile life she bore. Every element played into a single, high-stakes ballet. And then, as they reached a ridge overlooking the extraction point, the captain's weight began to take its toll. Her arms trembled, her legs screamed, but she refused to falter. She thought of every training exercise, every whispered story of past rescues, every ounce of strength she had accumulated over years of relentless discipline. She reminded herself that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action despite it. With a final monumental effort, she made it to the extraction zone. Helicopter blades churned the air, lifting dust into blinding swirls. The pilot, briefed on the situation, extended a cable, ready for a hoist. She knew she couldn't risk the captain slipping or aggravating his injuries. Asa, with steady hands and unwavering resolve, she laid him down, ensuring every strap and brace was secure. The SEALs moved in, lifting him safely into the helicopter. For a moment, she simply stood there, sand clinging to her, muscles screaming, heart pounding, and allowed herself to breathe. The impossible had been done. The captain was alive. The mission, against all odds, had been saved. Later, as the helicopter lifted off, the SEALs gathered around her, gratitude and awe reflected in their eyes. They had always respected her skill, but today they had witnessed something far greater: the courage to act when everything seemed lost, the determination to carry the weight of a life in her hands, and the unshakable calm that turned chaos into triumph. The captain, lying on the stretcher, looked up at her with eyes filled with emotion. I thought I was done," he said quietly. She smiled softly, brushing the sweat and grit from her hair. "You're not done. Not today. Not ever. Not while we're still breathing." And in that moment, the desert seemed to hold its breath with them. The wind softened, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the dunes, as if acknowledging the quiet heroism that had just unfolded. The legendary marksman had not only saved a life, she had reminded everyone present of the fragile, powerful beauty of resilience and courage. But the story didn't end with survival alone. The SEALs, normally stoic and reserved, felt a shift in themselves. They had seen vulnerability met with strength, fear met with determination, and hopelessness met with unwavering action. And in their hearts, they knew that leadership and heroism were not always about rank or reputation. They were about the choices made in the moments no one else can endure. Weeks later, the tale of the rescue spread quietly through the ranks. She did not seek recognition, and yet her actions became legend. Young recruits whispered her name with reverence. Veterans nodded in respect when she entered the room. And the captain, now fully recovered, never missed a chance to acknowledge the courage that had saved his life quietly, sincerely, without fanfare, but with a depth that spoke volumes. Even in the solitude of night, she reflected on the mission. She remembered the heat of the sand, the weight of the captain, the tension of every step, and the surge of adrenaline that had carried her forward. And she understood more deeply than ever that heroism was not a title, it was a choice, made repeatedly under the harshest conditions. Often without applause, but always with consequences that mattered. Because kindness doesn't vanish, it waits, and it finds its way back. And courage? True courage often appears in unexpected forms: a quiet marksman lifting a life into safety, a steady hand in chaos, a resolve that refuses to break.
8.
The desert remained vast, unforgiving, and merciless. But in that harsh landscape, a story had been written, not in ink, but in sweat, grit, and the unyielding human spirit. And it would not be forgotten. Thank you for listening to this story. If it inspired you, comment below about a moment when someone showed unexpected courage. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible true mission stories from Whispered Words.